Okay, for this video, we're going to do Rollo, the psychologist, and Eric Mazur, the Harvard teacher. Had some innovations in teaching over at Harvard in physics. Okay, the first one, Rollo, psychologist, he said, genuine creativity is characterized by an intensity of awareness, a heightened consciousness. Yeah, the person's into the subject. They love it, they study it, they know it, and they've seen new and better ways to do things. Okay, the ultimate error is the refusal to look evil in the face. I see that all the time with Christians. They're so clueless. You know, you tell a Christian, well, gee, if somebody poisons your water, that means they don't like you. And they go, oh, no, it wasn't done on purpose. I'm like, are you freaking stupid? It's been known for, close to 100 years that stuff is rat poison, okay? And then aluminum has been added to it. Aluminum is not only an excitotoxin for the brain, it inhibits the plasma membrane calcium ATPase. It also inhibits the sarcoplasmic endoplasmic reticulum calcium ATPase to pump calcium from the cytoplasm into the endoplasmic reticulum. So that means it's an excitotoxin. Thank you. That means it can kill brain cells, okay? It's also a mitochondrial inhibitor. How much worse does it have to get before you understand that it's bad and it causes leaky gut and it decreases testosterone production and it decreases sperm production? Hello, and it forms complexes with fluoride that increase traversal of the blood-brain barrier. You think that's an accident? Geniush? Geniush is the Polish word for genius, but when you pronounce it geniush with a sarcastic tone, that means you're an idiot. Okay. Next, evil in this system of ethics is that which tears apart, shuts out the other person, raises barriers, or sets people against each other. Experience is the harshest teacher, but also the best. That's why you want to get experience in an area if you want to learn it. Rollo, depression is the inability to mentally construct a good future. Yeah, a person is depressed when they can't see a way out, and they're kind of hopeless. That's why it's good to be a Christian, because it gives you hope. And that's why Christians are less likely to commit suicidio. Okay, Rollo continues. Courage is the capacity to move ahead in spite of despair. The opposite of courage in our society is not cowardice, it is conformity. Yeah, any lazy retard chicken can be a conformist. Rollo, if you do not express your own original ideas, if you do not listen to your own being, you will have betrayed yourself. Okay, so that's really sort of a modernized version, watered down version of Soren Kierkegaard, okay? He said that Soren Kierkegaard had said to follow your own passions and interests is like riding a wild stallion versus to just go along with the herd. The crowd is like falling asleep on a hay wagon. Okay, next quote of Rollo. The capacity to bear anxiety is important for the individual's self-realization and for his conquest of the environment. Every person experiences continual shocks and threats to his existence. Indeed, self-actualization occurs only at the price of moving ahead despite such shocks. This indicates the constructive use of anxiety. Yeah, I think that's also why you want to simplify your life so you've got more energy to deal with your problems rather than you'd be less likely to be overwhelmed by them. Rollo continues, it is the artists, the poets, and the saints who threaten the status quo, which each society is devoted to preaching. Yeah, the artists, the poets, the saints, and also the smart people, okay? Because the smart people can see when stuff is BS, like in medicine. All right, next we're going to do Eric Mazur. He lived from 1954 and he's currently alive. He's an excellent professor over at Harvard. He's in the physics department, and he had noticed that, he thought he was doing a good job teaching, but he realized the students weren't really understanding stuff. They were just memorizing it for a test rather than learning to understand. And he says you can forget the facts, but you don't forget understanding. Understanding is good. It's kind of like what Ayn Rand said. Ayn Rand said, you teach a stupid animal to memorize things, okay? But a human should be taught to understand them. And she's right, as usual. Eric Mazur, learning has two parts. First is the information transfer, and then the second part is the sense making. The pre-assigned reading takes care of the information transfer. So he would assign the reading the day before, but then when you show up to class, he would have the students talk with each other, in a sense, kind of like a Socratic method of asking each other questions so that they could work towards understanding the material. So again, they would get familiarity with the material by reading on their own, but they were expected to discuss it in class to develop a higher level of understanding of the material. Okay, he says the real hallmark of learning is transferring what you've learned into new contexts. Okay, that's like the Aristotle quote where he said basically the proof that you've learned something is your ability to teach it to someone else. Okay. Notice how the multiple methods are combined: pre-reading, Socratic questioning, and peer instruction. Okay, Eric Mazur continues. Sense making is the aha moment of understanding so that the student is able to apply the information in a new context. Okay. And Eric Mazur says, once you've understood the material and you can apply it to a new context, you now have a transportable skill. Okay, now here's a good set of quotes by him. He says, because school insists on a single correct answer and it punishes failure with the usual grading system, it actually prevents the school from providing real-world problems. In the real world, the road to a solution, to success, is littered with failures. You keep, approximating the truth, approaching it asymptotically, but you're going to fail on the way, and then you realize the reason for your failure, and then you correct, and you get it. Okay, school is an artificial world of, multiple choice scantron tests. It's not like the real world. Eric Mazur. Depth of learning is more important than coverage. I would also say if you want to be good at something, you have to be able to articulate it, to talk about it. For example, if somebody comes to me with a medical problem and says, gee, I've been having dizziness lately. What do you think? I mean, should I say, give me a multiple choice scantron test? No. I would go through the differential diagnosis for dizziness, and we would see which one seemed to fit the patient's situation and work from there. Okay. Can you imagine if somebody asked me, a question about a brain MRI, and I said to him, can you put that on a multiple choice question? No, I would say, let me look at the films. Let me look at the patient. Okay, Eric Mazur. Depth of learning is more important than coverage. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. The actual trend in high school and colleges, we've got a lot of material to cover, so hang on to your seats. And that's all BS. That means the teacher sucks, okay? A good teacher, what they say is, okay, here's a couple key points I want you to understand, and this is why they're useful. Like the quote by Justus Liebig, having a new conceptual metaphor concept understanding enables you to see a whole bunch of things and understand a whole bunch of things you couldn't before. Like once you understand that atherosclerosis is a blood clot, then anything that causes the blood clot increases the risk of atherosclerosis. Okay? That makes you smart versus memorize. You can memorize 20 lectures on atherosclerosis taught in a conventional medical school or conventional residency, and you come out of there not knowing anything. Give a statin for high cholesterol. That's all you'll know. Because the lectures are stupid. They don't explain causality. Real understanding is what causes what. So you can put together a chain of events that lead to something, and you can predict consequences. You can adjust the chain of causation to prevent those consequences. Okay? Eat a low-fat diet and avoid animal protein, and you'll lower your cholesterol. And you won't need to take a statin, and you'll be better off. Okay, I sort of made up a quote to quote back at Dr. Mazur. I said, a teacher is like a catalyst to convert learning information from a high energy state, a list of facts that's hard to make sense out of or process or use, to a low energy phase, a concept that can be visualized associated with something the student already knows. Yeah, that's how we learn stuff, connecting new information to what we already know by metaphors and comparisons, analogies, similes. Okay. This is my quote still. I just add my quote in here. Learning for the sake of self-improvement as your first priority. Learn for the sake of self-improvement and you will retain more and grow faster. Grow knowledge faster. The knowledge-seeking student has a big advantage on the grade-seeking students. The curiosity for learning enables them to better see connections between topics. The curious student is constantly on the lookout for new and better ways to improve and refine their categories. Yeah, your brain remembers what's important to it. So if you're seeking knowledge, you'll feel the importance of it and you'll want to remember it. So anyways, that's our quotes for today. I hope you found those helpful.